compliance, uh, support staff, dot your I's and cross your T's, and you should be all right. But we'll see. Again, that just kind of crossed my mind about the APR transfer portal. We've talked about NIL in the past. Last week, an interesting segment with Willa Brown, cost of attendance. That is very interesting. So it is the time that we're in now, with social media added to everything. Before we go to our first timeout, well, we're going to be talking some SWAC conference basketball. Right offhand, we'll say preface this by saying this is still early, but for uh, Alcorn State, I have them as a heavy favorite. Boy, what a tough one to open up at home and lose to Jackson State, a rival. Southern University. I guess I was whining and complaining about the Texas two-step. Southern University goes in, and I put an extreme opinionated impressions on Coach Woods. They go to Texas, and it hadn't happened in maybe a while. They go to Texas and defeat Texas Southern and Prairie View. Texas Southern on the last second shot from three. Um, is Larry Chatterbox Hill all right? Oh my! Oh, he took that one hard. And then Grambling State loses. To me, I think they are the favorite. And then they lose on the road to Prairie View. Prairie View once again tough as usual. They're going to be heard from. And then Texas Southern picked to win it all on the men's side. They're behind the eight ball, but it's still early. It's still early, Charles.
Yeah, it is early, but I think it gives you a sense in terms of how competitive it is. You talked about Prairie View. You talked about Grambling. They blew a 15-point lead against Prairie View. 15-point lead on the road at PVU, and they lose the game. There were two buzzer beaters in game one. Texas Southern losing to Southern, and then of course our loss to Jackson State. We had a 4-point lead with 23 seconds left and lost. That's something that hasn't happened since Landon Bussey's
Gotta
been coach here.
gotta
You know, you
finish right,
you got to get a
Charles.
stop. Yeah, I mean, so that's highly unusual, for that to happen. But and for our situation and talking with Coach Bussey, he clearly puts that loss on himself and his coaches. He
Hmm.
said the players played well enough to win and hold on, but as a coach, and he took it upon himself and his assistants, we didn't put the team in the best situation to finish out that game. And I talked with him yesterday. He said there were at least 12 situations in the last 4 minutes of the game that we just failed as a staff to make the team aware of. So he's putting it on himself. There was a complete breakdown defensively. There was miscommunication on that final shot. You let the kid wide open when it hit two threes already in the second half. He nails one with 4 seconds left. And then Byron Joshua misses a layup at the buzzer. I mean, going hard to the rim. So I think you're going to see a lot of competitive games. And I'll say this, Carlos, I think it's going to be game to game. You never know what's going to happen. 8 of the 10 games that have been played so far have been decided by 10 points
Hmm.
or less. That tells you, at least early on, and like you said, it's still early, but it tells you how competitive it could be on both sides. I mean, the Lady Braves in Jackson State had 7 technical fouls in that game. It was very chippy, very intense, and we just missed free throws. We kind of put ourselves in position and then just kind of let it slip away from the free throw line, but still competitive. And I think on the women's side, I think it's very competitive there as well. So this is kind of what we expected. We kind of knew this was going to be the case early. We don't know what's going to happen going forward, but through the first week of the season, a lot of intense games. And Landon Bussey told me yesterday, Texas Southern 0-2, he believes that makes them even more dangerous. So we'll see how that evolves as time rolls on.
Yeah, because this time next week it could be a totally different feeling, a different take. But again, it's early on, and for Southern University, pretty much last year they were doing pretty well until the last three-fourths of the season in conference play. So yeah, you're happy with the victory. It's a good start, but there's plenty of basketball left to be played, and that's why I'm being cautiously optimistic. with all this game. We'll kind of look at some of the standings, and again, we'll say because it's early on, sometimes you don't want to look at the standings after just the opening week. But they played what, Monday, Wednesday for some, and then they're playing again Saturday and Monday. So a lot of games being played. Yeah, they're young legs, young heart. They can handle it, but that is still a lot of games to start off the conference season. Then it'll kind of balance off. So maybe after the third weekend, we'll see. But for Southern University, FAMU and Bethune Cookman, Saturday and Monday, they went on the Texas two-step. So winning on the road, that's the recipe. At least winning half your games on the road and pretty much playing at a 100% at home and winning all of your home games. That'll put you in a position to be successful. A lot of basketball left to be played. We're going to take our first time out. We'll get a little bit more into the basketball opening conference play. Scheduled to join with Coach Van Pettaway, Charles. It's going to be interesting to see what his take. Alabama A&M, Alabama State, off to a good start on both sides. Should be a very competitive season, as you stated. You're watching the Coles Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. We shall return.
HBCU League Pass. Watch your favorite black colleges. Some of the best players in the land. HBCU League Pass. It's game time. I'm proud and I love my HBCU. HBCU League Pass. Watch your favorite black colleges. Some of the best players in the land. HBCU League Pass. It's game time. I'm proud and I love my HBCU.
Let's get back to getting ticks instead of watching flicks. Before we can safely get out there, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your crew.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
Can I get the now bar, please?
$1.
Have a good one.
Got it.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey.
Let me get a now bar.
Sure.
$1.
Appreciate you.
Got it.
One bite of 100% Angus beef ballpark frank, and you'll say, hello, summer. Oh yeah, it's ballpark season.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavill of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
Boy, I tell you, Coach, I don't know if I probably would have to have some earplugs in going in that band room, and I'm sure every band room is like that on HBCU campuses and others. Wow, it's loud just listening to it. So just think about being in there, but you gotta love it. The HBCU culture. As you can see, we're joined by Coach Van Pettaway here on the Coles Brown Show, and of course Charles Edmond. Coach Pettaway, good morning to you. Happy New Year.
Good morning, Carlos. Happy New Year to you guys.
And it is a happy New Year for swag basketball play in the conference. We've said it several times, albeit early. Um, it has been it's off to a good start. Teams winning on the road. Can you win half your games or more on the road? Can you win at home? And that'll put yourself in a position to be in championship play. Coach, your thoughts on the opening one, two, three? It's going to be four games in the first week, a little over a week. But your thoughts on the opening conference play?
Well, the biggest thing and the most glaring thing is that teams toward the bottom were able to defend their home court, and I'm talking about Alabama A&M and Alabama State. You know, they were teams that the coaches didn't pick very high, and they were able to defend their home court. And then when you look at it, the teams that were picked at the top, they didn't do as well. When you look at what Texas Southern did, what Prairie View did, you expect them to defend their home courts, and that didn't happen. So that's going to throw this thing in an upheaval. And then I didn't expect Bethune-Cookman to go on the road and beat Florida A&M. I definitely didn't see that one coming. And I'm talking about on the men's side, and then on the ladies side, on the women's side, you know, it was more about the way they really predicted it. Alabama A&M defended their home court. Alabama State, which was picked, I think, second on the women's side, they defended. And then, of course, you had the great games like the game at Alcorn on the women's side. You know, I think that went down to the wire. So I think you're seeing the parity in the SWAC. And to me, it just means it's going to be a great season. We're in store for some great basketball. And with Alabama A&M winning their first two games and now going on the road, we're going to see how tough they are, because they got to go into Alcorn today, and that's going to be a very big test for them to be able to win on the road at one of the toughest places for me. Now, I'm not talking about the other coaches,
Mhm.
but it was always a tough place for me to play. Uh, going into the Whitney, hey, that was a Whitney trap down there, boy, because they really got up. No, what I'm saying is that they always played so hard. They always played
Mhm.
so hard. They really got after you. To go into the Whitney complex, you got to be ready to play.
And you know, Charles, and maybe you can help me on this. Officially, what's the name of the? Uh, is it the Whitney David Whitney complex? Is it a gymnasium or is it a arena? Now, hold on, Alcorn State people, don't jump me and send me nasty email. Um, Charles, what is it official? Is it arena or gymnasium?
The Davy L. Whitney Arena.
Now, Coach Petaway, doesn't it look like a more like a gym? It's unique. It's tough to play there. It looks like a huge. You know what? It reminds me of Vanderbilt. That's the only example I can. The way the setting is. Am I just being trying to just be funny? But it looks like a big, 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 huge gym. I'm wrong about that.
But well, at Vanderbilt, no. I wouldn't use Vanderbilt for the simple
Hmm.
reason the benches are on at the end of the court. You know, that's what
Yeah.
makes Vanderbilt unique. At Vanderbilt, and when we were coaching, they wouldn't let you go. The coaches have more latitude now. You can go you
Hmm.
can walk all the way around the half court because before you would leave out a Vanderbilt horse because when your team went away from your basket that you're sitting under, you had to scream to get anything out. You know, we as a staff, we had to get together in unison to call out stuff for our kids to hear. But now they allow the coaches or the coach, the head coach, to walk around almost to half court now, and that makes a big
Hmm.
difference at Vanderbilt. Whereas down at Alcorn, I think the intimate atmosphere with the fans being right there on you, that's what
Maybe
gave
that's what it
them
is.
right. That's what gave them an advantage. I'm gonna be honest. It reminds me of Elmore because the fans are right on
Hmm.
top of you, and then and then when you get a couple of them jokers in there that really want to get under your skin, you hear everything because they're right there. So that's what to me that's what made it so tough. And then you add in the fact that they always had talent. You had the
Oh yeah.
talent in there with them people on top of you. Yeah, it was rough in there. It gave me some headaches. That's one of the only places where, as a coach, I had in that arena, I had a losing record. I could not get out of there. It was tough. I had a losing record against Coach Whitney now, against Coach
Hmm.
Whitney. Against everybody else, you know, I was okay. But it's tough. And I think it's the fans. And I think they're saying the same thing in football. Their fans just give them a great home field and home court advantage, and that's what
Yeah.
you got to have. That's what basketball is all about. That's what being an alumnus of a HBCU is all about. You having pride and respect, no matter who you're playing. You come out and you support these kids, and that's what you get at Alcorn. Now the downside to that, what a lot of the people always say, well, that's all they got to do down there is go and support Alcorn, you know, because of their location. But
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, Charles. I guess I need to try to rephrase it. It's a unique. It to me it has the feeling of a huge gym, and maybe I didn't do a good job of explaining it. Albeit it's an arena, but it is one tough to play in tremendously. We'll get Coach Petaway back in, but I guess Charles, I will get some interesting email after that those comments about the Whitney complex. It to me again, it's just arena. Yes, officially it's arena, but it has a feel of intimate place, and I guess Coach Petaway said it much better than I did. It reminds him of Elmore Gymnasium.
Yeah, the fans
Now,
are. I mean, the fans are right there behind you, and we make a lot of noise. I mean, the band
mhm,
used to sit behind the visiting bench. They sit on the opposite side now, and so it when the place is packed, when it's half full, it's a very tough place to play with the band going and the fans going. And even though school was not in session, school won't be in session until I think 10 days from now.
wow.
So it was a tough situation in terms of getting students this time of year, but it was a great atmosphere for your number one rival game. And I was really proud of the fans that came out, some of the students that came out, because this time of year is tough because school's not in session in a lot of our places. So
Right.
it's really, this is where the community has to step up and step in. And I thought they did a real nice job. I think folks were just looking for something to get into, with football being over with. So I thought it was a great atmosphere. And for Coach Petaway, I mean, hey, I was there when Coach Petaway and Coach Whitney butted heads. And I think what added to the excitement was you had two fiery, passionate, fire and brimstone coaches going head to head, tooth and nail, without giving an inch. And I think that passion, that energy, that intensity spilled out onto the court. So you had intense ball games between those two. And I think fans saw that and fans wanted to see that. You got two Hall of Fame coaches there, won a lot of games. So I think that's what added to the intrigue when Coach Petaway was there, is the fact that he didn't give an inch, Coach Whitney didn't give an inch, neither team gave an inch, and that passion, people like that. People enjoy that. And that added to, it wasn't a rivalry, but it was an entertaining and an intense ball game between those two, Alabama A&M and Alcorn, when Coach Petaway was there.
Right.
Well,
And then Carlos, the other thing too is that once the game was over with, the respect was there because he was a
Yeah.
mentor. Coach Whitney, he was one of the first people to take me under their wings when I got into the SWAC, and to this day, he and Coach Job have probably influenced me off the court more than any other coaches that I've been around.
yeah, and boy, listen to you guys talk about it, and to me, Co- Coach Joe was interesting. Probably, and let me just say this, Coach Petaway, you were my favorite coach, opposing coach that came into the FG Clark Activity Center. Charles was right, passionate, fiery. I I remember sitting there one time. I was like, my goodness, you know you're gonna be coached well because you were so intense, and I'd see you even when you're winning. You were so intense and getting on players, but then when that whistle blow to get back to action, a simple little pop on the behind of the shoulder, I say that's a good guy, and so I'm lucky to have you to come on the show. And when I reached out to you, because boy, you're talking about intense, but see, I love intensity. I really do. But coach, you look at Ben Job and some of the coaches that you coached against, and now the coaches in the league now, swag basketball, very good. And back to this
Right.
race, coach. It's early on, but man, Coach Smith at Prairie View, intense. Now, to me, he reminds me of you as far as the intensity in a team that preaches and plays outstanding defense. Alcorn plays outstanding defense.
Right.
Coach
Right.
Woods at Southern. So I think some of the fans that you talk to, they're kind of used to the up tempo. But I think now this league, the teams are very good defensively. Am I way off on that?
No, no, I think you're right. They're putting more emphasis on it. You look at Coach Bussey won with his defensive intensity last year. He won because they turned people over, which created easier basket. Texas Southern, they've been consistent over the years because of the defensive end. When Coach Woods jumps out on you, it's because of defense. And what they're going to see now with Coach Hughley at A&M, he's coming
Hmm.
in there mixing things up on the defensive end, and they're creating turnovers, and I think that's why they're in the mix. So we've got some outstanding coaches in this league from top to bottom. So and Coach Ivory, he's back at Mississippi Valley. Do you realize that they did not make them come out of that zone to the last 4 minutes of the basketball game the other night? So he's
Wow.
still applying that defensive pressure.
Oh,
He's making people shoot from the perimeter. So you all better get ready for Mississippi Valley now, because Coach Ivory is no joke. He's still got that defensive presence, and I think that's what makes SWAC basketball so great.
guys, and particularly you, Coach Petaway. I didn't give the scores in the early part, but I'm gonna tie it all in. Um, Southern goes on the road. Are you surprised that they were able to go in and because that Texas two-step, during the break, I said, Coach, how can and here I go. Let me give you a warning. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm complaining and whining about Southern playing in Texas to start off every conference season. I don't think it's going to change, Coach. But are you surprised that they go into Texas and defeat Texas Southern 70 to 60? No, no, no. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the women's side. I am totally sorry. They go in and defeat Texas Southern and Prairie View. Are you surprised?
Well,
77 to 76 in overtime against Texas Southern.
no, because they normally play well out in Texas. I think if I'm not mistaken, they did the same thing they did it. They play those two teams tough.
Hmm.
That's what I'm trying to say. So no, it did not surprise me, because when you look back at the history of Coach Woods being there, there's just something about playing Texas that they seem like they put a little more into it, and they play those teams well.
Alcorn at home. Uh, they
Now
lost.
that shocked
Grambling.
me. Now I'm gonna
Grambling
be
drops
honest
a
now.
game. Hmm. Go ahead, Coach.
I was surprised that Jackson State was able to go into Alcorn and win that game. I didn't expect that. That was one that was I didn't see coming. And I don't know if Alcorn just had an off night, or is Jackson better than what they've shown in the preseason. Charles,
Could
Well, I'll
be.
say this,
what do you say?
Carlos. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I'll say this. With the way we were playing defense for most of the game, we had a 6, 7, 8 point lead, and it felt like we were up 20 because even though it's a close game on the scoreboard, we had control of the game. And then in the last 4 minutes, we fouled a kid in the act of shooting a three. He gets 3 free throws. We had some defensive breakdowns. We had a 10-second call in the backcourt. Just some small things. And we talked about it early on before you came on. Coach Bussey took that loss on himself. He felt like as a coach and his staff didn't put the team in the best situation in the last 4 minutes to close out the game. We missed a couple of front ends of 1-and-1s we missed some key free throws down the stretch. So just some little things. And once the game gets into this up into the 60s offensively, that's about as much as we can do. I mean, I'm not saying we can't win a game scoring 65 or 70, but we put so much pressure on this team defensively. You just wonder how much gas is left in the tank. We talk
Right.
about the old school coaches, and you talked about Landon Bussey. He kind of reminds me of you and Coach Whitney. I mean, I just left
Right.
shoot around a little while ago, and he's in it. He's in it. I
Hmm.
mean,
Right.
he's in game time mode already 2 hours before tip off because he understands the importance of these next two games. You start out 0-2 and 0-3, and then you got to go to Texas next week. So these games are critical right now for the defending regular season champs. But we just didn't close out the game, Coach. 4 point lead with 23 seconds left at home. You got to close the deal. And you got to
Right.
give the kid credit for Jackson State. He hit a deep three. There was a defensive breakdown, miscommunication from what they saw on film. So you got to tip your hat to Jackson State for hanging in there because they could have folded the tent and could have went home, but they didn't. And we kind of let them hang around too. So a combination of a number of things that happened in the last 4 or 5 minutes the other night.
And give congratulations and kudos to Jackson State to come in, and they were confident enough to say, "Hey, we hang around. We know who we're playing. It's a rival." And they did a good job. So I just want to give congratulations to Jackson State as well, guys. Um, this recap from January the 2nd. Let me do this. On the women's side, of course, it was Jackson State 59, Alcorn State 49, Alabama State over Valley 76 to 65. It was Bethune Cookman. Oh boy, over FAMU 85 to
Yep.
50. I'm really shocked. Wait a minute, 35-point victory against your rival that
Yep.
cannot sit well. Cannot. Alabama A&M over Arkansas Pine Bluff,
Yep.
67 to 58. It was Southern over
Oh
Texas
Lord.
Southern, 70 to 62. And Texas Southern has really struggled on the women's side. And then, of course, it was Grambling State over Prairie View, 66 to 60. And that was on the women's side, January the 2nd. January the 4th, guys, Alabama State over Arkansas Pine Bluff, 72 to 63. It was Grambling State over Texas Southern, 76 to 69. And then Southern lost in overtime to Prairie View A&M. Uh, Coach Pugh, of course, excited, spent many, many, many years at Southern University, so they're able to get that done. And for the Lady Jags, they go 1-1 on this trip. I mean, that's what you hope for. On the men's side, they won both on the road, but the race now is off. Again, Charles, and I think it's going to be a week by week thing. I mean, what happened this week? You can't rest on that. You have to look forward to the next week, and then the next week you got to play it 1 week at a time.
I was told, Carlos, that Sean Woods heard your comments. Putting the pressure
Come
on,
on.
and they responded.
I don't, I don't think Sean Woods cares about what I have to say. But
but yeah,
no, go ahead.
no, I was going to say on the women's side, you got a big game today. Bama State and Jackson State, two team that played for the tournament championship last year. Frida Jackson has got that team in a whole different mindset. You talk about a good front court with the bigs that they have. Misha Williams Holiday is no longer at Jackson State, but as Nate Kilbert told me, and I saw it with my own eyes, they're a tougher team to defend now because they've got multiple bigs that can get it done. And I think they, as a team, knowing that they just can't dump the ball inside to Misha and let her go to work, other players have to step up, and that's what happened in part the other night. I think we kind of got outside of ourselves, got a little chippy. There were 7 technical fouls called. We're not the type of team that's just gonna do a lot of talking, but that's what happened in a rivalry game. It was intense. There was no question about that. But we hurt ourselves from the free throw line, as we tried to get back into the game. But I do think though that Bama State's gonna be a team to watch. I think Jackson State's still gonna, they're the defending tournament regular season champs. They've done it, but I think it's a different team than what we've seen in the past. And without Doriana Lewis at Alabama A&M, I'm anxious to see now how A&M's gonna look without that presence in the middle. So I think on the women's side, a lot of interesting storylines as well. Southern let one get away. We'll see Renette Skeet, the head coach at Texas Southern, in her first year. She played her ball here at Alcorn. Talk with her, back in the summer. So I'm interested to see how Texas Southern kind of gets it going, as well as, and as you talked about, Bethune-Cookman in Florida A&M. I mean, that's a shocker to say the least. So a lot to talk about on the women's side as well.
Well, I still believe Jackson State is a team to beat. And look, it's a rivalry game against Alcorn State. And then also, Coach, maybe you can elaborate on this. Jackson State is going to they've been dominant the last couple of years. They're going to get everybody's best shot, whether it's the 12th place team or the second place team. And I still believe Coach Reed, she, at the end of the day, she has what it takes to have that Jackson State team there. Do I expect 30-point wins in the conference every time they go out on the court? No, because they're going to get everybody's best shot. But I still believe Jackson State women, they're the team to beat, and I'm not swayed one iota from that.
Right, I agree with you. She's still got enough in the tank. She's got enough coming back to where that roster is still loaded. They still got some nice players on that team. So, uh, and her with her style of play, I think that they are the team to beat on the women's side. The other teams that they got to come up to where Jackson State's the Lady Tigers are, because they are ready to play. They got a good team. They got
Now,
Woodard and those ladies coming back, and they've got to be ready to play.
yeah, and guys, some of the intense battles, perhaps, of course, they're still going to want to get the number one spot. Based on predictions, it's always going to be interesting who's going to be second, who's going to be first, who's going to get at third, the middle of the pack. I've heard the word parity mentioned on this show so far, and I think that is true. It's going to be very, very competitive. Guys, in the past we've talked about maybe after about 3 or 4 playing dates, weekends, is that going to be a time to assess and give us a good gauge on how the conference race is going to go, or should we just continue to look at weekend by weekend with the race on both sides?
I would say,
Well,
Carlos,
hey,
that oh,
yeah, go ahead, Charles.
for me, Carlos, I like to divide the season into thirds. It's 18 conference
Right.
games. So the first 6 games is kind of where teams, like on a boxing match, you kind of feel each other out.
Filling it out.
So for me, the first
Mm-hmm.
6 games is kind of where I kind of look at and say, okay, here's what we got. Here's what teams have. Here's what they don't have. And then from there, the second third, you kind of put it in place. And then the next third, that's where you see the contenders from the pretenders. So the first 6 games to me of the 18-game marathon, that's kind of what I look at. And so it's way early. I mean, we got a couple of guys injured for today. We might get them back for Monday and going forward. So it's still early yet. But yeah, I like to divide the season up into thirds. So this is the first third for me, and I'm just kind of seeing what's what is kind of hard to determine right now. But that's kind of how I like to look at it.
Right, and before the addition of the other teams, I would say you take it to the turn. Until, by the time you made the turn, you would know where you are. But now with the additional teams and additional games, he's right. You divide it up into thirds, and then you'll see where everybody is. So it's still early. It's still early. The contenders will be able to separate themselves from the pretenders. By that second third.
And
Yeah,
I'll also add to this, Carlos,
mhm.
real quick. The scheduling is different now. You don't play everybody twice. There's some teams you only
Right.
play once, and so I think that adds another level of dynamic. We're only going to see Southern once. We're only going to see Grambling once. We're going to see the FAMU and Bethune-Cookman's twice, and so you have to look at that. So I think that plays a little factor in it too, because the team that you only see once early in the year, you might not see again till the tournament, perhaps. And so teams change up, players go down, teams change. So I think that adds a little extra, dynamic to it. In the past, you're playing teams twice, you get a good feel, but some teams you're only playing once in a season. So that adds another level of drama, perhaps, to it, especially on the back end when you get into the tournament.
Right, because I remember last year, of course, Southern played Bethune Cookman and FAMU a total of 4 times, home and away. Last year they went to Bethune and FAMU. This weekend they're coming here, and so I'm assuming Southern is going to make a return trip to
Yeah.
Florida, and no divisions in basketball per se. So yeah, to your point, only going to see all corn. With that being said, Coach Pettaway, Saturday and Monday's game, which games stand out to you this weekend?
Well, I'm gonna be honest. I'm looking forward to the A&M Alcorn game because I want
Hmm.
to really see where Alabama A&M is in terms of them being able to play. And then, of course, on the women's side, I got Alabama State and Jackson State. That's the game. That's the game to watch on the women's side because I think those will be two teams that, when it's all said and done, I think they'll be toward the top on the women's side. And my reasoning for Alcorn and A&M, we're trying to figure out right now, is A&M a pretender or a contender? That's why I'm going with that, because Alcorn, after losing that home game against Jackson State, I think that'll put a little more fire in their belly, and they're going to come out and play today against Alabama A&M. So seeing where Alabama A&M, those are the two games that I'm looking forward to.
Sounds like Alcorn's going to be in a nasty mood coming up the day after a loss. And coach, do we put too much emphasis, or what's the feeling? You've been in this position. Um, you're picked near the top, and then wow, right out the gate, your first conference game, you lose. Have you been in that position before when you were coaching?
Yes.
And if
Oh,
you
yes.
do, Coach Fedaway say yes. And then how do you respond? You don't panic, but you do what?
No, it's only one game, and that's what you tell your team. Okay, fellas, we made some mistakes. As a coaching staff, we didn't put you in the right position. That won't happen again. And what I would tell my players, if you don't get outplayed, I'm not going to get out coached. I promise you that. And that's what you put on them. That's just one game. Alcorn can certainly bounce back from this. They can take a game that they didn't think they were going to take on the road to make up for it. That's all you have to do. That's the mentality that you have to have with your staff and your players. And so that's just one little game. It was a close game. They lost that toward the end. So they got a lot to build on with that game.
And coach, I know in football we talk about the home field advantage. In basketball, is there more pressure? I can't think of a better term. Playing at home, are the players more relaxed? And then on the road, it's us against the world mentality. Is it easier to coach on the road compared to at home?
No, I'll take home any day. Because when you got to go into some of the places we had to go, boy, they be waiting on you. So, no. Coaching at home is always easier. Your kids everything is familiar with you. You have familiarity. And whereas on the road, anything can happen, anything could change. Now you have more togetherness on the road because it's just you and your players. But you got to be ready to play, especially at home, because of the pressure from your fans and the pressure you put on yourselves.
Well, Landon
Interesting.
Bussey has talked about this a little bit, Carlos. I've talked to him about that
Mhm.
in terms of playing at home and on the road. Of course, the last 2 years, we played every road game in non-conference on the road. You come home for a couple of days and you're on the road again. And he talked about the fact that he likes being on the road because you have more control of your team on the road. You got curfew.
Mhm.
You can circle the wagons. You can tighten it up on the road because it's just yourselves. At home, yes, and he really praised the fans and the supporters and the alumni that texted him after the Jackson State loss, telling him to hang in there. And I was a tough, appreciated
Yeah.
they loved the atmosphere, and it was a great atmosphere the other night. But for him, he likes the road because he feels like you have more control. When you're at home, you got to deal with the dorms, and you got, your kids go to the cafeteria. I mean, they're doing what they're supposed to do, but on the road is a little bit tighter. You're on the bus. So it's just one of those things where, yeah, you love being at home and you got a home court advantage. But when you're on the road, you got to really tighten it up. The focus has to be there because if not, you're going to get the doors blown off of you on the road if you don't come ready to play. So I think for Coach Bussey, he loves the road, but I think he's liking now at home, especially with our schedule with the first three at home. Even though we dropped the first one the other night, we got a chance to bounce back, and he's disappointed. He said there's 17 more to go, but these next two are must wins before we go to Texas next week.
Yeah. Well, good luck on that Texas two-step. My goodness. I mean, who can I talk to? Who can I talk to in the conference office to mix it up a little bit? My goodness. It's always Texas Southern and Prairie View.
Not going to happen.
Oh, now, I
Not going
know.
to
Look, I'll have a better chance of becoming a monk in Tibet when that happens.
happen.
How about that? Oh my, Coach
Carlos,
Pettaway,
you all know
huh?
there are going to be some changes coming. They're already talking about expanding the field for basketball for next year. Now, not this year,
I
and
saw
and
that.
there are a lot of big changes coming down the pipe for basketball because I think one of the things that will affect us, they probably will go with all conference champions as automatic qualifiers as a whole. That's my opinion now.
Mm.
And
Wait
then
a minute. Wait a minute, Coach Pettaway. That's regular season, right? Or tournament? I think Coach Pettaway froze up. Let me do this because I
I want
think,
to know that. We got to get him
yeah.
back on
Let,
that.
let, let me do this. Let's go to a timeout, and we're going to add another person to the discussion, a sitting AD, a former athlete, and we'll pick up the conversation. Well, isn't it'll be funny if I'm a monk in Tibet, Charles? That's interesting. Huh?
That would be hilarious. Yes.
Yeah, well, I already have the shaved head, so I'll be right at home in that aspect. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, we're gonna add Wheeler Brown to the conversation. You're watching the Carlos Brown Show on the Black College Sports Network.
You're halfway there, Carlos. You're halfway there.
All right. I think we're still. Are we still live? Let's see.
How you guys doing today?
Doing fine,
Doing
Wheeler
all
Brown.
right.
What's going on?
Can't complain. Can't complain. Over here at Savannah State today, we got a doubleheader over there at Savannah State today. So yeah. I had to get on the road this morning, but it's all good.
Tell Montez Robinson I said, what's up?
I sure will. I most certainly will. You got to get back on track. We dropped one to Miles the other night, and wasn't too happy about that. But 5-2 in the conference, so not doing bad. Rolling along.
Yeah. His first couple of years at Alcorn, he had one of the better 3-point shooting teams in the country. I remember we were leading the nation in
That's
3-point
what he was
shooting.
saying.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he was. I mean, he had the players shoot the cover off that thing early on. He really did.
Wow.
Yeah,
Mm.
he did. He
Mm-hmm.
likes up tempo. He likes to keep the pressure on
Yeah,
you.
he does. Yeah, he
Charles,
does.
Charles,
Uh-huh.
everyone be silent.
Oh.
Hold on.
For my people that don't get to see me, trying to remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we about to blow across the world, just like the day is breezy. This motivation for the people, and this classic Bible teaching say, hey, this for my people that don't get to see me, trying to remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we about to blow across the world, just like the day is breezy. This motivation for the people, and this classic Bible teaching, motivation.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique to spice up your closet with trendy, unique looks. We have fashionable and chic looks at very affordable prices. Velvet Boutique offers free shipping all year long on all orders. Shop online at www.melvetboutique.com. That's www.melvetboutique.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Shop Melvin Online Women's Boutique.
This is Ryan Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Time to call a credit repair company to fix my credit.
Hold the phone, man. You can do it yourself with Credit Versio.
That's way too hard. Call the credit repair company. Most credit repair companies only work on 1 or 2 accounts at a time, making it slow and expensive. You won't figure that out for months. Ignore him. Credit Versio's brilliant software scans all 3 credit bureaus, finds the accounts that are hurting your score, and guides you through the entire process. Anyone can do it. Let's fast forward and see the results. Wow, I fixed my own credit and saved hundreds. You can do this. Visit creditversio.com.
I'm returning to Clinton Paris, and Tampa's my community. I grew up here, went to school here, and my wife and I make our home here. What makes Tampa special are its people. So when I represent someone injured in my community, it's personal. Call my office and speak to a real lawyer and not some referral service. I will fight the insurance companies to get the settlement that you deserve. At the law office of Clinton Paris, we take the pain out of being hurt.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. I'm reminded of sometimes you have to make adjustments, and that's what we're going to do. Thanks for the text messages, loyal watchers of the Carlos Brown Show. I'm Carlos Brown, joined by Charles Edmond, Coach Van Pettaway, and Willa Brown, sitting AD at Fort Valley State. Coach Pettaway, you were bringing up an interesting point about what the NCAA is going to do that's going to affect college basketball. Can you continue that point, sir? And then we'll add Wheeler to this conversation. Do we have you, Coach Pettaway? Well, I guess we'll get him back. Wheeler, Happy New Year to you, sir. How you doing?
I'm fine. Happy New Year to all you gentlemen.
Well, you same to you. You heard the kind of conversation that we were having with Coach Pettaway that the NCAA they're going to make some adjustments as far as the basketball tournament.
Well, you would hope that it would provide more opportunities for us, but you don't know, what the meal is going to taste like until after it's finished cooking. So, we got to wait for the NCAA to finish cooking and, put it on the table, and then we'll see what happens from there.
That's an interesting way to put it because, and hopefully we'll be joined back shortly from Coach Pettaway. I did kind of saw the article. I didn't get a chance to read it in its entirety. But it sounded like Coach Pettaway was saying, I guess I'm trying to get cleared up. Was it the conference regular season champions or the tournament champions? And he was mentioning about automatic bid. Can someone help me out?
I believe they're talking about the tournament champions. I can't imagine probably could be a scenario where your conference regular season champion would get an automatic bid, but it seemed like it would take some of the flavor out of the conference tournaments, that are hyped up and, that are played on a yearly basis. So it's kind of hard to imagine that uh, they would just take the conference regular season champion. I mean, even though, in some instances that would probably be great because, it puts a lot of emphasis on the regular season. But at the
Hmm.
same time, I think it would take away some of the luster from the conference tournaments, which are in a lot of instances big money makers and things of that nature. So I don't know.
Well,
Um,
me and Charles Edmond we've had debates. Must be 5, 6, 7, 8 years now, and that's why I didn't get too excited. I'm gonna go back and read the article in its entirety because I have been a proponent of the conference champions, but I know I'm in the minority on that, and I know the tournament champions. It makes money for most conferences, but I don't know if we can put our conference in that making a great deal of money or financially being
Hmm.
viable. But I'm not sure. It may have changed. Uh, but we're going to also talk with you about alumni giving back. Um, you look at some of the basketball attendance, and some of the fans are saying how once again how can we get more uh, fans behinds in the seats for its basketball. We all know we're in a geographical area that football is the king, and it gets much of the you know the fanfare, for lack of a better term, with football. But college basketball at one point in our conversation, I mean, with a rich tradition and history, SIAC, CIAA as well. Um, what will it take? And I know that's probably going to be a very long answer, but if you can, what are some of the things right offhand that we can do to get the attendance back up as far as
I mean,
basketball?
I think the dynamics. I think the dynamics are what the dynamics are at the end of the day. In the South,
Hmm.
football is king. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about that. And I think basketball is always going to play a second fiddle in the South. I think further north, basketball, there are more interests, so to speak, that sort of thing. So I think geographically, it's going to kind of be what it is. But I think we as institutions probably have to do a lot more in terms of, I don't know if giveaways are the proper word, that sort of thing, but we gotta entice our fans more to come into our arenas. Whether we're being creative and doing 2-for-1s or letting kids in free and having the parents pay. There are a few things that we can do, but I think overall the dynamics are pretty much what the dynamics are, and it's going to be difficult to try to uh, overcome that. If we think that in the South that basketball is going to overtake football in terms of attendance and things of that nature, it's a nice brass ring to try to reach for, but I don't know that we grab that ring at the end of the day. I think we just want to build on the numbers that we do have, and and kind of see what happens from there. Not to be satisfied with the way things are,
Right.
don't get me wrong, but just understand the dynamics and what that entails, so that you don't get your hopes up real high and get a face full of egg at the end of the day.
But you would agree, and I understand what you're saying. You would agree that you have to improve it and it has to get better, albeit it won't reach the uh, the excitement of football, right? But you would agree
Yeah, and
things it can do better.
winning cures all, and no doubt about that. And winning cures all.
Well,
I mean, I would think that, Carlos, if you weren't 2-10 going into conference play, if you were 10-2 or 11-1, I would think that the interest level would be a lot higher, on your particular campuses, that sort of thing. In a lot of instances, we're the victim to trying to go out there and get that money. There's a flip side to it because, your record is going to be what your record is. And,
mhm.
unfortunately, a lot of people aren't going to look at that aspect of it. They're just going to look at the record and say, well, why go see so and so? They've only won 2 out of 12 games this year so far, that sort of thing. And so, we're a victim of our own systems pretty much when it comes to that. And I think winning has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, well, in that case, Charles will make the argument that, coaches will be critiqued, judged on what they do in their conference. And so, Charles, you're not saying disregard the non-conference, but they're going to be critiqued on one winning the regular season or winning that conference tournament championship. Correct?
Yeah, I think that's, I don't know of a coach in the Southwestern Athletic Conference in basketball has been fired in the first week in January. I don't think it's ever happened. And I think it's kind of understood that, you're being, forced in a way to play these big games to bring in the big money. And therefore your record is going to be like Wheeler Brown. Your record's going to be what it's going to be. And so therefore people don't get excited about that. And I think fans understand it to a certain point. We've talked about not playing as many of these games, but it's a necessary evil. But I will say this about fan attitudes in this conference. I think, and this is just Charles Edmonds' opinion, I don't think SWAC fans get into SWAC basketball until after the Super Bowl. And I say that because, yeah, after the Super Bowl, because football dominates the conversation even now. The Super Bowl's second week in February, whatever it is, you've gotten through football signing day, you've gotten through the Super Bowl. What else is there after that? Basketball. So fans right now are talking about, the early signing period still, dealing with that. Signing period, first week in February, they're talking about that. You're talking about who's going to be the quarterback at Alcorn, at Southern, Dooley, McNair, all that's going to be talked about still. And once you get through signing day, once you get through the Super Bowl, then there's a little dead spot in terms of those sports, football especially. So now you're like, okay, let's see what's happening with SWAC basketball. So now people get ramped up for that. You go through February and then March Madness hits, then the SWAC basketball tournament, then people are in it. I mean, this is just, I might be wrong about this, but unless you have your rival games like what we had, Alcorn, Jackson State, yeah, Bethune-Cookman, Florida A&M, a few days ago, I think, you're not going to have the sizzle that you would typically have. So, and people can feel the way they want to feel about it, and it's fine. But I think until football's king, and we're going to still talk about it, but until football kind of gets out of the way, which it never really does, I do think that, SWAC basketball will have its place. And come March, I think fans will be truly in it. And I think it'll be a topic of conversation until basketball season is over with. That's just my opinion. I think the rival games in SWAC basketball draw a lot of attention. Jackson State Alcorn, for example, Southern Alcorn, Southern Jackson, Southern Grambling. Those type of games will generate attention for that particular Saturday. But other than that, those Monday night games are tough because folks have to work. Attendance drops on Monday nights. And I think the creativity that Wheeler Brown talked about in terms of generating attendance, especially for the Monday night games. I think Saturday games, it could be better, but I think it's okay. Monday night games are the challenge. And so, you're playing them at 5:30, 7:30. That's tough. Folks are getting off work, those type of things. That's the challenge. Now, on Saturdays, we used to have 5:30, 7:30 on Saturdays. But I think to generate more fans, we move up some of these games. Most of them now are early. We're playing at 2 and 4, today. And our next, so on Monday, we'll be playing at 4 o'clock, at 5 o'clock instead of 5:30. to try to generate, more fans earlier. Start time, you can get on the road earlier. So these are just top of the difficult dynamics and questions that we have to deal with. And hopefully at some point, basketball attendance will increase. But I also think it's a different dynamic too in terms of the play. Back in the day, you had the Avery Johnsons and the Carlos Samples and the Lindsey Hunters of the world filling up 25 a game. That generated the excitement, that generated the buzz. You don't have that. You don't have that, unfortunately. You don't have that sizzle. We're being looking at Garrett Hicks today, averaging 16 a game, number 2 in the league in conference. Hopefully that'll generate a good attendance at the Whitney Arena today. But it's a different dynamic. The coaches, Van Pettaway was fiery, Davey Whitney, the late Ben Jobe, all that generated back in the day more fan interest. But you just don't have that now. You just don't have that today. Hopefully some of that will come back with the coaches that we have and some of the players that we have. But back in the day, it was a totally different dynamic. So there are a lot of things in the pot, to really add up and to think about as we try to increase the attendance in SWAC basketball.
Well, you know what I'm going to say, Wheeler? It doesn't help. 2 and 10, you have no interest. And I understood how you put it out a couple of weeks ago. You did reward the coach for making that tremendous sacrifice and
Mm-hmm.
playing that tough schedule. But I try to separate it. Okay, just the fan and alumni part. I think winning and the potential to win and having you remember we talked about a compromise, having a decent non-conference record going into the conference, I think that would help. And then also, me personally, I like a winner. And I want to win not only in football, and I understand football is king, but I want to win in baseball. I want my team to win in basketball. I want my
Mm-hmm.
team to win in cross country, etc., etc.
I think Charles makes an excellent point. Football saturates everything. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about that. And
Hmm.
up until pretty much National Signing Day, that sort of thing, the football interest is still going to be very high. Like Charles was saying, who's signing who, how many 4 stars or 3 stars is so and so bringing in, and things of that nature. Those things are going to dominate our mindset until after all that is said and done. And then we kind of float more towards basketball. And I think somebody was saying that, while a lot of ADs say that they don't judge coaches on those uh, out of conference games or guaranteed games, that sort of thing. But under the table, they probably kind of do. Uh,
Hmm.
while I don't think the majority of ADs do so, I do think the regular Joe and regular Joe Blow, regular fan, that they do. And I think, our alums, they do. I don't believe that they get the gist of what's going on in terms of having to have those monies to help, with the overall athletic programs and things of that nature. I think our people pretty much just see wins and losses. And I think sometimes at the end of the day, some of our athletic administrators kind of succumb to the whispers or the street committees or what have you, in terms of folks saying, well, Coach so and so ain't this, ain't that, and he started out the year 2 and 10 and all that sort of thing and stuff. And sometimes the whispers get so loud that a lot of athletic administrators may succumb to that, especially if you have a president that's listening to those whispers.
Hmm.
Then those presidents are putting that idea in your mindset. Mr. Brown, do you think we might need to take a look at making a change in this area, that sort of thing? And that's why, Charles, I've always said, especially as it pertains to women's basketball,
Hmm.
because when you look at it overall, there's no money in women's basketball. So to ask a women's basketball coach to bring in X amount of guaranteed dollars, to me that's ludicrous. So I would always tell my women's coach, schedule to win. Want you to have the best record possible. I'm not even concerned with how much money you're going to bring in, because even if you bring in some money, it's going to be minuscule. Where the men's basketball team can probably get $80,000 from USC, that same women's team probably can't get but like maybe 15, and rooms and some pizza. So to me, there's no need on the women's side to subject them to that. So let your women's coaches go on out there and schedule to win. Schedule teams that they're going to win. I mean, schedule some difficulty so that, if you got an opportunity to go to the tournament, you got a little strength of schedule thing mixed in, that sort of thing. But, it's a catch-22, Carlos. Folks say that, they're not listening to, the boo birds and, that sort of thing and stuff. But ideally, you can't help but hear them. If they're everywhere that you turn, they're there. I don't think that they're not. And I can say I don't hear y'all, but I hear y'all when I don't hear y'all. It's just a matter of whether or not I'm going to allow you to enter my train of thought to where I'm going to act on something that you're going to say. So I mean that's pretty much where we are, I think.
Well,
And,
this is
and
an
then you
interesting.
look at someone like Carlos, like Tamika Reed. Now, I'm sure you followed the story. What happened last year when she played LSU? And she had a 10-point lead with 5 minutes left and let it slip away. And she talked about even last season the challenges when you're so good, and they've been so good for many years. She wants to bolster her strength of schedule and at the same time bring in a few dollars, as Wheeler Brown says. But those bigger teams, those teams that can pay you a good amount of guarantee, don't want to play you because you're
No.
too good. And if you lose that
Mm-hmm.
game, if for example USC, for example, if Jackson goes to Southern Cal and beats them, they'll never play them again. And so those big
Mm-mm.
guarantees that you will be getting there, you're not going to get again. So you have to wind up settling
Mm-mm.
for what you can get. And she was frustrated about that and that's just the price of success. That's what happens when you're
Mm-hmm.
that good. You have a hard time getting the big money, the big mid-major games. So it works the other way too. When you're not winning, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you can get those games. But when you start winning, you have a hard time getting those games. And that's, I don't know if she's looking at the money part of it. I'm sure she is, but she's been very successful. And I'm just using her as an example because
Mm-hmm.
she's been winning for quite a period of time. So I think, it works the
Mm-hmm.
other way too. Wheeler Brown would say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, just get what you can get. But I think Coach Reed wants to have her cake and eat it too. She wants the guarantees. She
Mm-hmm.
wants the big schedule. She wants to win the games. But when you're winning,
Mm-hmm.
teams don't want to, they're going to back away from you. You're going to get what you can get on the lower end of the food chain, which is not as much
Mm-hmm.
money, not as much exposure. So it kind of works the other way. But then you get good in conference and you dominate, and then you're happy again. And then you get an LSU once you have a chance to win, and you should have won, in the tournament
Mm-hmm.
game last year. So it kind of works the other way at times as well.
And Charles, you
Well,
can't blame those. You can't blame those major schools for that attitude. I mean, because they're those coaches' jobs on the line also. And how does it look for them when they're going to AD's office trying to renew their contract and they lost to lowly Jackson State? I mean, that's something that's definitely gonna come up. There's no doubt about that. So, and then I
Yeah,
paid you too on top of that. Now, come on
yeah,
now.
yeah.
I got on Coach Robinson the other day because I think we paid Fort Lauderdale. I mean, we gave them $1,500, and they came in and they beat us. And
uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I'm like, Coach, come on, baby, come on now, come on. You know, I bought them dinner, and they whooped my butt. Come on now, that don't sit well now. I mean, 1,500 is just 1,500, and it might be a drop in the bucket to some people, but
Yeah.
on the Division II level, I'm paying for a win now. If I'm giving you
Yes.
$1,000 or I'm buying dinner or buying pizza or what have you now, come on now.
Yeah.
Somebody tell me something different. I'm expecting you to come on in here and lay down now, roll over or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
So but I can understand the mindset.
I
And
guess
at those bigger schools, quickly, Carlos, at those bigger schools, you are judged also in non-conference. When you're paying out those guarantees, your record going into conference carries just as much weight as what you do or don't do in conference. As a matter of fact, it could push you over the edge. If you're a 6-6 team, if you're a Power Five team and you're 6-6 going into conference, and then you wind up being the first round exit in your conference tournament, that hurts you both ways. It hurts you in the regular season in conference, hurts you going 500 in conference, and then they look back at non-conference. You're 6-6. You had 8 home games. That hurts you as well, considering all the guarantee money. Like Wheeler Brown said, you're paying out probably $500,000 in guarantees to play at home to get those wins. So at that level, it works the other way. For at the SWAC level in HBCU, not so much, but at that level, it works. The non-conference is big because it gets you a good seeding at the table in the NCAA tournament, because it's a conference thing as well as what you do individually.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
I understand that, but I'm gonna be selfish. I could care less about the Power Five schools and their non-conference. I'm trying. Yeah, I'm selfish. I'll admit that, but I'm very deeply concerned because what we've been talking about. Okay, we've established and we have a sitting AD who says you've got to bring in X amount of dollars. So the fan participation is not excitement because they have bad records, but that money helps the athletic department survive. Now we're in conference. Now we're in the conference season. Now I think it's more pressure because you have had a lot of money games, and then we talk about conference RPI and what have you. Now that conference team, because the conference is on the lower end of the RPI, there's pressure there. They can't afford 2 or 3 losses if they want to perhaps not have to get into the play-in game. But then I understand it's a lot of coaches like the play-in instead of just going right straight into the 16th seed. So it's a lot of dynamics, Charles and Wheeler, for basketball. I just simply want to see a balance, and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago in the non-conference schedule, and I want to see more success, conference play, a conference as a whole, where they can do better. Will it happen anytime soon? I understand. It won't. I won't hold my breath, Willer, but there has to be a tweak to the business model in athletics, and that includes basketball as well.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. Definitely.
With that being said, now coaching. We were going to talk about it last week. Wheeler, you're presented with an opportunity to hire a coach, no matter what sport. What are a couple of things that, off the bat, that it's a must for you? And I guess I'm alluding to, do you look at
Well,
someone who has name recognition, i.e., celebrity coach, with very little experience or none, or do you look at the coach that or coaches that have went through the process, have gotten experience, just looking for an opportunity? How do you balance those two, or should I even say balance? Is it a clear cut case for you what you're going to do?
well, Carlos, for me, experience counts.
Mhm.
It means a lot to me. Not necessarily head coaching experience, but if you bring in some of that to the table, then that's a plus.
Mhm.
But experience counts. So I'm looking at the total body of work. I'm looking at whether or not this person has a history of developing talent. Can you recruit? Can you operate under circumstances that are quote unquote less than favorable? Are you used to operating in an environment where financially you may not have the best of everything? All those things I have to take into consideration prior to hiring a coach. Now, having said that, Carlos, I'm a back up a minute. A&T
Hmm.
just hired a guy. And
I
I'm
was
an
going to ask you
A&T
about that.
alum, so
Yes, sir.
I kind of dig deep into the dwellings of what they do, that sort of thing. And so I'll put this out there. I like their hire. Okay, when I look at the boxes, he puts a check mark in a lot of the boxes. I like the fact that he has experience in the new conference that I'm going
Hmm.
into, which is the CAA. That's a plus. Extensive experience. He's won, at various CAA schools, that sort of thing. So, I'm liking that. The HBCU guy also, graduated from Valley, I think. Uh, been around a couple minutes, that sort of thing. I like his experiences. I like what he brings to the table. Okay. Having said that, and I always got a but in there,
Oh,
Carlos.
I knew it was.
You
I knew
know,
one was
having
coming. I knew
having
one was
said
coming.
that, okay, what I don't like is the fact that, and you guys know, and I'm an HBCU lifer. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I make no excuses, no bones about that. I'm HBCU for life. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I slam A&T for getting rid of a coach and Coach Washington
Hmm.
who checked a lot of the boxes that they were looking for in terms of a head coach. Experience, bam, he had it. This man had a 35-15 overall record as a head coach.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, he won, I think, 2 Celebration Bowls, maybe, but was part of 4 winning Celebration Bowl teams. Okay. Last year, he was 7-4. Look at who he lost to last year. He lost to Duke, FBS. Okay. He lost to uh, North Dakota State, who I think just won the FCS championship for the umpteenth time.
Well, they're getting ready
Okay.
to play it.
He lost, or getting ready to play at one of the two, but who's won it like 9 or 10 times in a row or something like that. Okay.
Yes.
He lost to Gardner Webb in the Big South championship game. So 3 of his 4 losses, were, if it's a such thing as a quality loss, it don't get no more quality than that right there. And you're
Hmm.
playing for the championship in a predominantly white conference, so to me, while he might not have brought as much to the table as the guy they just hired, he wasn't chopped liver either. And
Hmm.
so to me, you let a coach go who was 12, 13 games above 500, who's won a couple championships, who's kept you in contention, throughout the time that he's been there, that sort of thing. Now, you let him go. My question becomes, did you let him go because he didn't have any PWI experience?
Hmm.
That's a question. That's a question that I would ask, that I would have to get an answer to, because when I look at the resumes of both guys, they damn near the same, except
Hmm.
for the guy that they just hired has more experience PWI wise than the guy that they just let go. So was the criteria in their mind, okay, were they looking for a PWI guy? And did Washington get let go? because he didn't have PWI experience. And if that's the case, then I have an issue with that because I think they should have given him the resources necessary to compete on that next level. And then if he did not win on that next level with the resources that are comparable to my competition, then I make the move and look to bring in somebody else. But to cut the legs out from under the man before he even had a chance to get into the new conference to see what he could do, to me, it doesn't pass the smell test. And that's just me. But I'm an experienced type guy, Carlos. I'm never going to be one where I'm looking at whether or not somebody played in the league and all that sort of thing and stuff. To me, that means nothing. You were a great player in the league. That's good. God bless you. You had an opportunity to get there. You did well, that sort of thing. Tell me how that translates into taking care of these kids that I have in the here and now. Okay, tell me how that's going to help you develop these kids. Tell me how that's going to help these kids get the degrees that I want them to have. Tell me how you're going to be able to take care of those kids ultimately, how you're going to develop those kids emotionally, socially, academically, athletically, explain those things to me. Because at the end of the day, that gold Hall of Fame jacket don't mean jack. If kids are going through your institution like a revolving door, if they're hitting the transfer portal left and right, if you're claiming to be the savior of the be all, then all, and then nothing happens, at the end of the day, when you leave and go home, I'm still left here with my kids, okay, who are struggling, trying to find a way, trying to get it done, trying to take that next step to get to the next level, whatever that level may be for them from a personal point of view, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and you're having that discussion. I can only speak because I'm a Southern alum, Southern supporter, and quite honestly, I've been asked, you know, when there was an opening, should Southern go that route and hire a celebrity coach, recognizable name? Now, Coach Banks interviewing him on this show, he said no, they were not going to do that, and they didn't. They brought in Coach Dooley, who, of course, everyone knows, cut his teeth at Southern University as he got into it. So I guess it's just, and I asked the question last week, it seems to be the trend to go that route. Not all the time, but in most cases, we've seen it. And what is how can I put this? What is the enticement, or what are the advantages of having someone who maybe didn't have any coaching experience but has name recognition? And I know everybody points to Jackson State having success, but the jury is out in other cases.
And I think folk need to understand that Deion Sanders was a unicorn. He's a unicorn, and anybody that thinks anything differently is just kidding themselves. You can't replicate what he has done, okay, simply because of who he is. It's not going to happen. The only other person that may be out there with any kind of similar name recognition, maybe somebody like a Ray Lewis, but even he is not on that level charisma-wise like Deion Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody that's out there that's trying to find the next Deion, they're kidding themselves because the next Deion isn't out there. There are more Eddie Georges out there. There are more Ed Reeds out there. There are more, what's the guy at Grambling now, the football coach? Hugh
Hugh
Jackson's
Jackson.
out there. There are more folk like that out there than there are Deion Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that the lure now, and probably Bethune Cookman, the guy Bethune may have thought about this, was the fact that, Ed Reed, he does have a lot of friends. He probably does have a lot of friends with money, so
Financial.
push come to shove, we can expect some kind of financial windfall, for our football program, in terms of guys contributing or people contributing, that sort of thing. But outside of that, I mean, I can't see it. I just don't see it at all. And I was talking with a president, a university president, matter of fact, a couple of days ago, who said that she thought that, you know, handling someone of Deion Sanders' notoriety, that she would never have put herself in position to even think about something like that. She said she cringed at the
Hmm.
thought that, she would be the president at a university that had hired a football coach of that kind of stature. So I mean, and there are probably a few other presidents that think like that also. But I think Larry Little said, I read the other day, that he thought that the hiring of these celebrity guys uh, could possibly be a good thing if they're in a university with a president whose ego isn't as big as theirs. And he
Hmm.
probably made a great statement by saying that.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
there
Carlos, let
there
me.
have been some there have been some clashes, you know,
Yeah.
i.e. at Jackson State president, and I remember a longtime person, Greg Rochelle, God rest his soul. He went back into history and said that the administrators were like, you know what, there will never be, and we're talking about A.W. Mumford. We will never have a head coach slash AD that is more powerful than the people at the back of the campus, people of influence.
Hmm.
So I guess the traditional way of building programs and getting student athletes in the program, come in as a freshman, help them attain a degree, and help them grow from a athletic standpoint. That's still, in my opinion, still the best way to to go. And also having like TC Taylor, he went through the process at Jackson State. Now he's getting opportunity. I still look for those guys to get opportunities to become head coaches, not the coaches that have the name recognition and celebrity recognition. Charles, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I want to say something quickly about Coach Washington. I mean, I think he did a wonderful job at A&T. But in my heart, in my gut, once they change conferences, and this happens in
Hmm.
transition, unfortunately, the ones that were not a part of the big transition, if you were a head of a company and it changes owners, probably the head was probably going to be pushed out the door. And I just felt like for Coach Washington, despite what he did in the MEAC, it starts all over again when you change conferences. Regardless of how unfair that may be, I just felt like unless he was 10-1, 9-2, competing right there in the conference mix, I just felt like that change was going to be made eventually. And I hate to say that because I think he's a wonderful coach, but I just felt like in the wash, in the transition, in the translation, that was probably going to happen, and it did. And it's just unfortunate because I thought he did a good job. I'm like Wheeler Brown. What did he do? But I think when you make these changes, when you change conferences and things like that, the clock starts all over again. What you did in the MEAC, unfortunately, doesn't translate to what you did, what you're going to do in the next conference or conferences you're going to probably join. So I felt like that was going to happen. I was hoping not, but that's just kind of the politics of it and how it kind of falls. It's unfair, it's brutal, but it's a tough cookie to swallow to me.
And Charles, I felt the same way. I felt that it was going to happen. I just thought that the man had built up enough credit to where he earned at least an opportunity to see what he could do moving forward. Especially having this past year, lost in the Big South Conference Championship game. So I thought, and with primarily less resources than his competition. So I really would have loved to have seen or had him have the opportunity to put together a battle plan to get those resources up to snuff in terms of the conference that they're going in, because you better believe there's a new guy
Yeah.
coming in. He's going to get the resources necessary. But if you were not prepared to give, your former coach those same kind of resources, and we always know the new guy gets more than the old guy. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. For some reason, it always happens. But, I thought that Washington had earned enough credit to where he at least should have gotten that first year in the CAA, to kind of see, with the resources necessary to compete, to see if he could handle, that particular situation, that sort of thing. So, it's going to be interesting, and I understand exactly what you're saying, Charles, and I felt it was inevitable. There's no doubt about that, and I knew that getting somebody with PWI experience probably was at the top of their list in terms of, what they were looking for in their next head coach. Preferably somebody that had coached in the CAA, so which they thought would probably give them a leg up moving forward, that sort of thing. And it probably can give them a leg up. But if the resources aren't put forward in terms of getting this guy what he needs to be successful. And I'm sure, he probably put some demands out there, and I'm sure he's probably going to get some things that Coach Washington probably didn't even dream of. And but like you said, it is what it is on that one. And but it's a shame, I think, that you work so hard and you're a winning coach. It's not like he was dog meat, but you're a winning coach, and just seems like I don't know. It just, I guess it wasn't enough, or wasn't enough of the right kind of stuff, that sort of thing. And so, it is what it is. So
Well, I'm just shocked, to be honest with you, that, and I've read and looked and talked to a few people on both sides of the equation. Shocked North Carolina A&T, even left the Mid Eastern Athletic Conference, and that's another story as in itself. Wheeler, you're an alum. You've spoken to other alums. If you could put a percentage on it, how many alums were in favor of moving from a predominantly black conference and moving elsewhere? What percentage would you put on it?
I'm gonna say probably about 40%.
Were in
I would say
favor?
probably were in favor. I'd say probably 35 to 40% may have been in favor.
Okay.
Uh, knowing the situation and knowing the president at A&T, who's an alum also, I might
Mm-hmm.
add, and but knowing his mindset, that sort of thing, having worked for him, I could understand his mindset in terms of what he was trying to do moving forward. For him, I think it was more based off the academic model
Yeah.
of competing than it was the athletic model of competing. A&T has visions of being the first HBCU to be a Research One institution, that sort of thing, and all the things that go along with that in terms of dollars, things of that nature. When they look at their what they call their peer institutions, there's not a HBCU on the list of their quote unquote peer institutions. So they're
Hmm.
always comparing themselves to, PWIs, that sort of thing. And I mean, that's fine if that's the direction that, they want to go in, things of that nature. But, I'm a old school traditionalist type guy, that sort of thing. And, so I was one of those that was against, leaving the conference that you founded from day one. Uh, I thought when A&T left the MEAC, it kind of took it down a couple of notches. And then when Pham and Bethune left, that was almost made it a death nail, so to speak. But, it's still surviving right now and trying to move forward the best that it can. But yeah, I would say probably 35, no more than 40% of A&T alums were for the particular moves. And
Hmm.
so you hear a lot about that. So you are talking probably about maybe 65% of alums that were or are against the move. But they're going to support A&T regardless of where they are, that sort of thing. They hate losing out on the traditional things, such as like the battle of the bands in the fifth quarter, and all those kinds of things. And I think you probably had just as many A&T people at the Celebration Bowl as you had North Carolina Central people.
Mm.
So I mean they're still going and supporting HBCUs and things of that nature, and so it's going to be interesting to see how it moves forward.
Well, next week, Wheeler, I want to get into you're a former athlete, collegiate athlete. We'll get
Hmm.
a little bit more into this transfer portal, 5 stars, 4 stars, and I think I've pissed off some people because I think we have sometimes the sky is falling mentality. If you're getting a 3 star and a 2 star, and someone else in the conference getting a 5 star, we're falling behind, and we've got to. Uh, sometimes it's just look. Let's get the traditional student athlete, put them in a position to be successful, coach them up, and then they're much better when they came in. But I understand we're in a quick hit society now. Got to have instant gratification. So we'll kind of get into that next week. I'm
Yeah, but
interested
I want to say
and,
this,
and getting
Carlos. At
your
at the
huh.
at the end of the day, you still got to button up that chin strap and put that mouthpiece in.
So coaching up,
So let's
co-
make this thing. Let's make no mistake about this thing. At the end of the day, you still got to put your hand in the dirt. And let's see what you got. So a lot of them stars, have a tendency to fall off. Once you start rolling around in the dust and the dirt, you you find out, whether those stars transfer from that sheet of paper to rolling around in your head when you got knocked out.
I'm just trying to put some perspective on all of this, and I give my opinion, but I want to hear from you guys. Oh, we're going to have this discussion again, but the sky's not falling. At the end of the day, we've got to just get better as institutions, as a conference, and we can. I have faith in us, but some of us are taking a different path to get to the same goal. So just kind of be careful. Just be careful. Wheeler, we are overdue. We're out of time, literally. Want to thank all of our guests. Appreciate Melody producing the day show. All of you guys for tuning in. We appreciate it. Until next Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time for another edition of the Carlos Brown Show, right here on the Black College Sports Network. Until next time, peace and God bless.